you're going to see as Gen Alpha comes of age, their use of AI is going to essentially dictate the way the society ingests AI because, again, the tool of AI is going to be native to them and they will know no other way. It's far left or far right, not politically, but left brain, right brain, right?
Yeah.
And those are the people who are going to be successful. But the people who are in the middle, who are jack of all trades, master of none, the liberal arts professionals, the people who have made a living on maintaining knowledge and selling that knowledge, I think are the ones that are really going to find themselves on the wrong side of this disruption.
Fastlane Founders and Legacy with Jason Barnard. Each week, Jason sits down with successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, and executives and get them to share how they mastered the delicate balance between rapid growth and enduring success in the business world. How can we quickly build a profitable business that stands the test of time and becomes our legacy? A legacy we're proud of. Fastlane Founders and Legacy with Jason Barnard.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Fastlane Founders and Legacy. I'm Jason Barnard, and I'm here with a quick hello, and we're good to go. Welcome to the show, Matt Britton.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely delighted. We're going to be talking about Generation AI, and you talk about Generation Alpha, which I had never heard about.
Wow.
And it probably just shows how out of touch I am with the world. And there may be other people out there who are as out of touch as I am and will be interested in knowing what that is. But you're talking about marketing to them.
Correct. So Generation Alpha is currently age 0 to 15. The hallmark of Generation Alpha is they are the first generation to grow up with AI in the household. So much like Generation Z was the first generation to grow up with a mobile device, i.e. the iPhone, in the household, and millennials were the first generation to grow up with the internet, which is why they're referred to as digital natives. Gen Alpha is going to be ushered in by a technology with power and impact like what we've never seen before.
Oh, wow. Cool. That's a brilliant introduction. But before we get into the conversation, I look at brand SERPs, and here I search for your name, Matt B. Britton, because that is what your knowledge panel says. So Google believes that your name is Matt B. Britton, and you were telling me that you don't actually systematically use it. So Google's picked up on that somewhere, and it's associating you still with your old company, MRY. And part of what we do at Calicube is make sure that that information is up to date, that it's
we'll have to talk about that separately.
But the other thing I found really interesting is, are you an American footballer?
I'm not.
Because you're associated with all these American footballers, which I found really curious because I couldn't find any information about you as an American footballer. So I then asked Gemini, can you find a connection between these people? And I found it super interesting to use AI to figure out why Google search is making that mistake, associating you with American footballers when it's actually not your career. And what it's come up with at the end of the day is, if you're watching the video, that you are associated with prominent Miami Hurricane figures. And I would assume that's simply a mistake in the name of the person, i.e. it's another Matt Britton.
Yeah, it must be.
Well, and from our perspective at Calicube, this is a huge problem, is that there are so many Matt Brittons in the world. How does Google know which one is you?
Exactly. That's exactly
and in
right.
this particular case, it thinks you're the American footballer who played with all these people at Miami. I love this stuff. I spend my entire life digging into this stuff and figuring out why Google and AI are getting it wrong, or how we can make it get it more right, or give you the results that you deserve. And your case was delightful for me. I spent the afternoon digging into this. I had fun.
Well, thanks for digging in there. I was unaware of some of those things.
Yeah, well, for me, it's just fun. But you've written a book, which I really, want to put up there, Generation AI, and that's coming out, from what I understand, literally today.
Well, it comes out May 6th. It's available on pre-sale, but yes, it's coming out today.
So Generation AI, you've explained briefly how can I say it, pitch? What's the book? What's the approach? Why are these people so important? And why is it so interesting? My personal perspective is, as you say, first generation that will be AI native. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah. So the book Generation AI is really about two factors. It's about this generation alpha, which you just explained, and how they're going to be different than previous generations, as well as the more broad impact of AI on business culture and society. And those two things combined, AI's growing impact and Gen Alpha's growing impact, is going to create a whole new realm in society. And it's
Right.
going to change everything from the way we look at our career paths to parenting to relationships to the way that we buy products and services. So I wrote a book to really, at a 30,000-foot view, give the reader an idea of the world that we're entering in and what they can do to future-proof themselves in that regard.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting from this is I was thinking, okay, AI, huge shift. We need to face up to it. Personally speaking, at CaliCube, I feel relatively comfortable because I feel I've got the grip on how AI understands me
Yeah,
and
it
my
seems like it.
company. But I hadn't thought about the influence of the people who are growing up with this. How
Yes.
important are the people compared to the actual technology?
Yeah, the people are the ones who are gonna bring this technology to life, and the way
Mm,
in which consumers and professionals and parents adopt AI or don't is really gonna change the trajectory of AI's impact on society. Obviously, when you look at AI in a household, which is a big part of the book, parents are gonna have to wrestle with kids having this powerful technology at their fingertips, which essentially emulates human interactions. So if
mm,
you think about it, if you're 7 or 8 years old and you're interacting deeply with a chatbot and it's interacting with you the same way the other humans that you interact with in the outside world do, it can confuse you and it creates a completely new worldview. So you and I, when we interact with ChatGPT, we interact with it like it's a technology tool. But for younger people who know no other way, their brains are going to be rewired differently. And how that impacts their interpersonal relationships is yet to be seen. We've seen the mental health impact of Gen Z based upon COVID,
mm.
and them being separated from other people, as well as them entering this virtual world of Instagram, Snapchat, et cetera. And it's created, obviously a lot of opportunities, but it's created a lot of detrimental impact as well. And I think AI is going to be doing the same
Yeah,
with Gen Alpha.
but even more so. I'm going to come back and I'm going to pick you up on one thing that you said. You said other humans. And does that mean you're so in this that for you, AI is another human? Or are you saying that kids of 8, 9 years old are beginning not to be able to see the difference between a
Well,
human
I
and
think
an
it
AI?
remains to be seen because AI is so new, Gen Alpha is so new. And
Yeah.
I didn't mean to, misinterpret AI as a human. I meant in addition, other
Yeah.
human beings, not to suggest
No,
AI is a human being.
I wasn't picking you up big, on a particular idea, or I was just thinking it's interesting that that would become part of the conversation. And I'm suspecting now, as we're talking about this, that we will start to see them as humans, and that distinction is going to become less obvious over time.
Well, I mean, there's currently a wrongful death lawsuit of a teenager who tragically committed suicide after having deep and intimate interactions with a chatbot. And allegedly, the interactions with the chatbot led this young person to commit suicide. And the emotional hooks that this chatbot had on this individual really caused this individual to interact and behave in a way that perhaps normally they wouldn't. We've
Yeah.
never seen that type of impact before from technology. And I think that is a whole new realm, which is one of the topics I cover during the book.
Right. And then you have two kind of huge problems: is parenting doesn't know what to do.
That's correct.
Law can't keep up.
Yep. And you also have teachers. So,
Mm,
I spoke in front of 700 college professors late last year. Many of them came up to me after my keynote and said, what am I supposed to do when my textbooks were written before the AI era? So these are people that are trained with inspiring and teaching and informing tomorrow's leaders, yet the tools that they have at their disposal kind of is devoid of the most important technology we've had in our lifetime. So there are so many gaps in parenting, in the workforce, and in the education system that we're going to have to fill over time if we're going to be able to catch up.
right. And then if we move into business, what I'm thinking right now, and this might be incorrect or unreasonable, but we look at AI, and there's a slow uptake. 6% of companies in the USA are actually using AI at corporate level. People are using it individually.
Sure.
So there's a slow uptake, and that has been surprising for example, Bing, who were thinking that Copilot would take off really quickly, and it's taken
Right.
off less quickly than they thought.
Yeah.
And however good the technology is, adoption is the key. And these generation alpha kids are the adoption, where it's going to be completely normal for them.
That's right. And we saw that happen with past generations. I wrote a book 10 years ago called Youth Nation. And the thesis behind Youth Nation is that for the first time, and this was 10 years ago, young people were in the driver's seat of culture. So if you think about the 60s and 70s, young people were largely counterculture. They did not have a large voice. They protested, they went to Woodstock, but what drove culture was what was played on heavy rotation on the radio or what was on the limited amount of TV stations. And if they had a different worldview or point of view, they weren't able to impact that at scale. And then, of course, in the social media era, all of a sudden they had this great megaphone with tools like Instagram and YouTube where they can dictate culture. And ever since then, what we've seen is what gets adopted in the youth market then, ultimately proliferates to society as a whole. And I think you're going to see as Gen Alpha comes of age, their use of AI is going to essentially dictate the way the society ingests AI because, again, the tool of AI is going to be native to them and they will know no other way.
Right. I mean, for me, this is a really interesting way to look at it. I mean, I think as you're saying, the Gen Z don't have AI native.
Correct.
So even those younger people are struggling. If somebody like me who is into AI is the exception in my generation, and probably all the generations.
Me too. I'm a Gen Xer, and most of my friends who I grew up with, who I know, they look at me like some science fiction character based upon all the ways I'm using it, because I had to kind of break out of the mold. And I'm just like you. It sounds like just technologically curious and love having hands on a keyboard and love understanding how this works. Where most people use it as a path to whatever they're doing in their work, but they don't seek out ways to use it to really drive them forward. It's just kind of like another tool. But that's not going to be an option anymore. I think for people to be successful, because AI is so impactful at replacing so many workflows that were once just reserved for human beings, I think really the bar is raised for every professional to really prioritize their full understanding of this technology. And to your point earlier, most are not.
Yeah, I've been surprised. I kind of thought everybody was looking at this to the extent that I am. And
people are using it to
6%.
turn their dogs into humans or turn themselves into action characters. And they think it's like a parlor trick. And, maybe they're using it to find the latest recipe for lasagna, right? But they're not really understanding its real power. And I think ultimately they're either going to find out because they do decide to jump in, or they're going to find out the hard way when one day they get a call from their supervisor that their services are no longer needed. And I don't mean to sound draconian, but that's sort of the world that it seems like we're entering.
Yeah, and there is the whole question of, is AI replacing jobs? And the answer is it can do the very simple jobs. And if you are doing a simple job, you need to upskill and you need to think about it now.
I don't agree with that statement. I think AI can do very complex jobs. For example, it recently was proven through a study that AI can create more accurate readings of x-rays. People who are radiologists wouldn't say that their job is a simple job, right? They're detecting cancer. And they've been trained through, many years of medical school and on the job experience. Yet here's a technology that can, in a more accurate, consistent way, at a small fraction of the cost, read x-rays. So that, and there's so many examples like that where it's not just replacing blue collar work. In fact, more so it's replacing white collar knowledge-based workers and even sophisticated complex fields like in the medical industry.
Now you say that, perhaps even more so. If I'm selling tomatoes, I've still got a job tomorrow.
Yeah. Or if you're a good chef, right? Like there's certain things that are uniquely human, but over time, are you going to go to a store? Like we've already seen it self-checkout at stores, right? Like Amazon has this technology at some airports where you can grab things and walk right out. And it just, you tap your credit card when you're walking in, you walk right out. Well, as that technology gets better and more reliable, will there need to be a cashier at a store anymore? Right. So will restaurants deploy robotics to take the place of waiters and waitresses or chefs? So there's no reason to believe it won't, because the technology's there. It's just, will society accept that is the question.
Yeah, and I love the idea of will society accept it, and the Generation Alpha are the society of tomorrow who are maybe going to force us, which I think you were suggesting earlier on.
Yes. I mean, for them, for what may be taboo for others, won't be for them. I mean, think about telephone calls. Like when I was growing up, we used to call each other, and Gen Z does not make phone calls at all. They have a phone, but they used it for everything but to make phone calls, right? And the way they interact with people would have seemed foreign to people 10, 15 years ago. So to think that evolution is going to stop, I think, is a misnomer.
So where are there going to be jobs?
So I believe, and I get asked this all the time by parents who are just freaked out after I talk about this brave new world, mostly about like, what does it mean for my kids, right? That's what people, especially parents, think about. And I tell them the same thing always, that there's going to be opportunities if you go deep into an art or deep into a science. So deep into an art, meaning you become excellent and a master at creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. Because ultimately AI is a great tool, but somebody still needs to tell AI what problem to solve, right?
Yeah.
It's not just going to start solving problems on its own, right? So, that's a big skill set, and it's less about a knowledge worker who's maintaining knowledge, or essentially how to write a contract, for example, because AI can write a contract now, but it's understanding when you need a contract. So that's a completely different skill set, right? Or going deep into a science, which is really learning how to go deep into engineering and technology so you can build and operate and deploy these machines. So it's far left or far right, not politically, but left brain, right brain, right?
Yeah.
And those are the people who are going to be successful. But the people who are in the middle, who are jack of all trades, master of none, the liberal arts professionals, the people who have made a living on maintaining knowledge and selling that knowledge, I think are the ones that are really going to find themselves on the wrong side of this disruption.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about the creativity and the human ability to move the boundaries. And then there's the whole debate about whether AI can be creative. Where do you stand on that?
Oh, it's very creative. I mean, if you look at ChatGPT 4.0's new image generator, right, and you give it a very complex query to output an image of, a child who's playing with a sunflower on a snow-capped mountain, in July in Aspen, Colorado, and you ask it for a certain glow, or you want it to be during sunset, it will be able to output that in an incredibly impactful and accurate way. And then on top of it, if you want to give it a prompt to say, make this image in such a way where that there's something bad, there's storms on the horizon, it will be able to symbolize that not only in the look of the character, that boy who's playing with the flower, but also in the weather and other ways to symbolize a story in a way that, you would have to brief a graphic designer and have multiple rounds of feedback to do. So that's an example of imagery or art, if you will. And then the other part of creativity is copy writing, and the writing ability of these tools is continuing to get better. So if you think about the ability to be creative, it is really what we read and what we see, and now even what you hear. You can create music now. It can create videos. It is incredibly creative. And is it is it going to kind of create artwork that's better than Picasso? Maybe not. But I think for most everyday uses, who is creating that? What humans are doing that either, right? So I think it's an incredibly creative tool. And I think, but yet somebody has to tell it what to do. Somebody has to paint the picture on what it's going to create. So it's not really understanding how to solve the problem. It's knowing what problem to solve is going to be the skill set that's in demand.
Right. Oh, I love that. And last question then is, as businesses today, what do we need to do today to prepare for tomorrow with AI?
So what I often tell people is AI is all about problem solving, right? And the problem solving could be, you need this piece of artwork or image done. It could be something more grandiose. So for me, the first problem I tried to solve with AI that really led me down the path to understanding its powers, I created my own health bot, where I created a custom GPT that I loaded in all my historical health information, because the number one problem I want to solve for is staying alive, right? And I wanted to use AI to help me solve that. And it's almost like you go through your hierarchy of needs: staying alive, make sure you can put food and shelter over your family. So it's like, okay, well, how can I manage my finances? And you really understand what the tool can do in ways to help you personally, which you're most vested in solving. Through that process, then you can kind of correlate that to business. So what is the blood test and MRI information for your business? It might be customer data or financial data. And then how can you help it solve problems in your business? And once you really get that framework, things start to open up for you, and you really start to understand ways it can apply to almost everything you do. But I think it all starts with solving one problem, and it's best to solve a problem that's near and dear to you to really move yourself along that continuum.
That is the most brilliant piece of advice I've heard. And I've actually just written down, if anybody noticed, what I'm going to do right after this.
And that framework is very much what the book is about, in terms of, because I didn't want to just try to scare everyone saying how much of the world is changing. I also wanted people to understand what to do about it in a practical sense.
Thank you so much, Matt. That was absolutely brilliant. I hope everybody watching enjoyed it and got something out of it. You get the outro song. A quick goodbye to end the show. Thank you, Matt.
Your corporate and personal brands are what Google and AI say they are. We can give you back control. CaliCube.